The poet said, "Come, take a pickaxe and break apart your stony self." The heart is matrix, is glutted with rubies. Springs of laughter are buried in your breast. Unstop the wine jar. Batter down the door to the treasury of non-existence. The water in your jug is brackish and low. Smash the jug and come to the river. The preacher says we all get stagnant at times. We are all in danger of believing what is in the jug is the only water around. And so from time to time we need a break. I don't mean time off. I mean to smash the jug of daily routines, to take a pickaxe to our stony selves. And that is a well-documented function of the church. The reading today about the disciples that rarely get what's happening. They don't even know Jesus when he shows up. Who is that guy, they say? He's telling us instructions. Throw the net on the other side of the boat, he says. They say, okay. And they drag in a whole load of fish they didn't even know was there. I don't know what was wrong with the left side of the boat. Some scholars have said this is about how the Romans overtaxed the fishermen. Some said this is about evangelizing. This is not the fisher of men text. Some say it's about spirituality and depths. I just like a story about a guy showing up on the shore saying, throw the net on the other side. What do you... But I like it because it's Jesus as mystic. I like it because it's the famous story about the breakfast cookout. Jesus returns. He says to them, bring some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter climbs back into the boat. They drag the net ashore full of fish. Even so many, the net almost tore. Come and have breakfast, Jesus says to them. None of the disciples say, who are you? But they know it was Jesus. And then he comes and he takes bread and he gives it to them. And he did the same with the fish, the text says. Not only is he telling them to do a new thing with their lives, he is demonstrating it. Now, communion is not bread and wine, it is bread and fish. Seems a little messy to me, but it's okay. Less formal, a little bloody, a little more organic, a little homey, if you ask me. But what is the message? To do something new. Smash the jug. Serve fish, not wine. Fish on the other side of the boat. The instructions are the instructions of a mystic. I love mystics. Mystics have informed us for centuries that we need to wake up, to take a pickaxe, which is at hand, and smash the jug of our lives so we can see what spiritual resources we have or what spiritual resources we need. I like the story of the Muslim mystic Rabia. She was an 8th century mystic in Iraq. One day she was seen running through the streets of Basra, carrying pots of fire in one hand and a bucket of water in the other. When asked what in the world she was doing, she said, "I want to put out the fires of hell and burn down the rewards of paradise. They block the way to Allah. I do not want to worship from fear of punishment or the promise of reward, but simply for the love of Allah." Her famous prayer goes like this: "O God, if I worship you for fear of hell, burn me in hell. And if I worship you in hope of paradise, exclude me from paradise. But if I worship you for your own sake, grudge me not your everlasting beauty." Rabia said to her listeners from the mystic depth of her heart, and to her critics, "Smash the jug of the faith you think you have if you are motivated by rewards. Because you have God, you have the inner resources to be whole. They are within your reach." She shocked those in her community. She shocked them into paying attention to what really mattered. I like Rabia. The mystic always does such things, not for herself, but to awaken the listener to the holy, to charge the spirit as in an electrical charge. Do a new thing, smash the jug, fish on the other side of the boat. Now, you will not have to imagine how mystics have been received by institutions like the mosque or the church. Mystics are difficult to pin down. They typically stand outside the church or mosque throwing rocks, always calling for wakefulness. Prophets were that. Built-in naysayers, contrarians. The prophets of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures announced doom on the kingdoms, not because they believed God would destroy the kingdoms, but because they were trying to wake up the kingdoms. Jeremiah's famous prophet challenge to the people, chapter 5, Jeremiah, if you're following along at home, "Go up and down the streets of Jerusalem." I'm waiting for that not to be a joke. Someday you will open those Bibles and say, "Go up and down the streets of Jerusalem, look around and consider, search your squares. If you can find but one person who deals honestly and seeks the truth, I will forgive this city," Jeremiah says. Wake up. The comedians are the prophets now, challenging power, saying things we wouldn't dare say. That's why we love them. Sometimes they say things just to jolt us to see a different way, to see a different view in our lives. I love those comedians who just use the absurd to ask us to look at things differently. I love Dimitri Martin, deadpan Dimitri Martin. Look him up. You can watch his videos later. He says things like, "I want to make a jigsaw puzzle that's 40,000 pieces, and when you finish it, it says, 'Go outside.'" He says, "My favorite fruit is grapes because with grapes you always get another chance." Because if you have a crappy apple or peach, you're kind of stuck with that crappy apple or peach. But if you have a crappy grape, no problem, just move on to the next. Grapes, the fruit of hope. The mystics, the prophets, the comedians say, "Do a new thing." I think intelligently the church at one point embraced this mystic essence in small doses. One would say Mardi Gras is just that. Not always the drunken Bourbon Street affair it is today. Once upon a time, the church turned everything upside down on Mardi Gras, embraced the feast following Epiphany. Remember Epiphany? January 6th. My UU colleague once joked Mardi Gras in New Orleans starts at New Year's and ends around Christmas. He was half right. The church took in the feast that leads up to the days of Lent. It's called Mardi Gras. It is called Carnival, or from the Latin, carne vale, farewell to flesh. No eating meat. It was a short season of merriment, masks, and you know what. Because Lent, the period of spiritual training and instruction, precedes initiation into the church originally. It was entering the cycle of remorse for the death of Jesus. That's what Lent is traditionally. It is a time to fast and do acts of piety. I know you love fasting and doing acts of piety. It is a time to confront the ego. Not to feel guilty, but to see what egocentricity drives us on and to find the resources within us to reorient our lives. It may have been, if you think of it in the broad sense of addressing a human need, a built-in release of tension, this Mardi Gras, followed by a period of spiritual practice, followed by a joyful celebration, which is Easter, all because we humans need that kind of ebb and flow in our spiritual lives. And we need to be reminded to have some discipline so that we can reap the rewards by addressing things like deprivation. We can smash the water jugs. We can take a pickaxe to the soul. We can do a different thing so that we know the rewards afterward. No one in your life is going to tell you that but me. In Boston, at King's Chapel, where I served before coming here, we got really wild on Mardi Gras. We had a pancake supper. There probably was some bacon also. Here we have jazz. We have clapping and singing. The essence of the message is the core proposition. Fish on the other side of the boat. Do a new thing. Sometimes a new thing is what you need. Sometimes a new thing happens to you. As you know, I had surgery 3 weeks ago on my hip, forced into a moment of introspection by that surgery. I had to ask myself the question, how much pain can I take? What is my response to being physically limited, not typically agreeable with that idea? What is the quality of my spirit when faced with adversity or change? Things happen to us to force us into such introspection. Once I surfaced from the fog induced by the procedure and the initial drugs I was asked to take, I asked other questions. How do I spend my time? Do I do what I need to do for optimum health and happiness? Can I allow myself to be ministered to and loved? I notice that at every turn of my recovery, which is ongoing, I am being asked to do a new thing, and the resistance is real. 10 days after my surgery, at my post-op meeting with my surgeon, he looked at me and said, "Throw down the crutches. Rise up and walk." He didn't say it like that. But I did. It was a miracle. But the miracle wasn't in my taking two very gingerly steps. But the miracle was believing in him and in myself. And then noticing that I had formed an identity which was less functional than I could really be. What would it look like if I didn't have crutches? Is this identity real? Okay, so now I will limp. I could tell that something in me resisted every new step of the recovery, no pun intended. Fish on the other side of the boat. Do a new thing. What's that for you? Form new identities. Throw the crutches that you are carrying around away. Examine the way you are spending your time. Are you doing what you promise? Can you be loved? Lent arrives in time to ask questions of the Spirit. And it gives us a frame to fish, to do something new, to stop something we are doing so that the deprivation asks us to rebuild who we are. Alcohol, sugar, meat, or blessing notes, or prayers, or right speech. One piece of wisdom in this season is start with an all-out, jazzy, dancing, pancake-laden, Fat Tuesday revelry, and then acknowledge that we are dust. Because we need the release first before we dive in to the discipline. This Wednesday night, here we do the most Unitarian of things. We acknowledge that life is important and death is real, and that this is a great formula for life, to make sense of it all, to know that we are passing through this moment and it is important and real, and this moment needs us. And then after that, we fish on the other side of the boat for 6 weeks. We do a new thing. We take on a discipline so that we might reap the rewards of joy and celebration on Easter Sunday. The mystics say, wake up, arise, fish on the other side, make a jigsaw puzzle, or just go outside. Do a new thing. But first, let's dance. Amen.